Sorare have dropped their winter gameplay update, which has got some massive changes towards the back end of this current season that we're in, prepping in for, the summer leagues and all the rest of it, with some foreshadowing towards some of the changes we might see in their summer gameplay update that will be coming in August. But with this season, we had a total change of the landscape on Sorare. From this time last year, really, a lot of deja vu kind of circulating around the community at the moment, where we went from an old regional-based system to a new regional and divisional-based system, and with essence and boxes and some of the new dynamic kind of reward systems that have been available this year, Sorare have been testing the waters with new stuff, and in this update, they've definitely been able to read the statistics, read the writing on the wall of what's worked and what hasn't, and they're doing their best to make adjustments to, make the game better going forward from here. But some of the changes that are in this update are definitely contentious points for, different players in the game, different managers at different levels. Really, no matter what region you're playing or what scarcity of cards you're playing, there's a few topics in this that have divided some opinion. And in the video today, I'm going to be breaking it down and going through exactly everything we've seen in this. But it's not the same as, I went live and we did a reaction video on this, and we kind of unboxed the update as it came out. But since, doing that live stream with you guys, I've went around and listened to all the other live streams and reaction videos around the Sorare YouTube community as well, just to get a balanced, kind of reflective opinion and a different POV on a lot of these other elements. And I've got some conclusions that, aren't overly different, I suppose, to a lot of my initial reaction, but there is some differences in here, having, paused and reflected and whatever. And I think everything we're going to touch on in the video today, for anyone that could be watching this is something you definitely want to be tuning into and thinking about for yourself at any point in the video today. If you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section. Just let me know your thoughts and feelings, your big takeaways from the announcement, good, bad or indifferent. Always excited to see what your guys' thoughts and feelings were, and the live chat was on fire when we were covering this, so expecting to see a lot of you guys popping back up again. But yeah, we've seen enough kind of reaction takes and all the rest of it. Let's just get stuck straight into this. And I think the best place to start with all of this is the divisional changes. Now, I'm going to start with limited as the kind of point of example, because I just feel that it's one step too far. I think there's like there's definitely a need, there's definitely a desire from within the game, from within the community or whatever, to make sure that the prizes are appealing, to make sure that the top of the table feels like the top of the table. And similarly to the changes we got this time last year, where that was the main agenda, it feels like yet again that is again the main agenda, and there's not really anything overly wrong with that. Dispensing with lower divisions that are paying out prizes that really aren't that great necessarily, maybe the scores aren't really that formidable, and then kind of recycling them into a more condensed divisional structure definitely makes sense. But what I think this is missing at every level, or I think they've just went one division too far, is probably the better way of saying it, at every level, with maybe the exception of rare, just because of the numbers that we have there. But limited, if we're looking at in-season champion as an example, I went back to game week 35 on Sorare data and did a wee bit of the hard lifting. Okay, so if we look at in-season champion, I looked at game week 35. That was the last game week that we had right before the winter shutdown for some of them. Not all of them, of course, but some of them. So it was the last game week where I feel that we had like all the champ guys out and running. And just to look at that, because I think everything I'm kind of not necessarily upset about, but certainly have discussion points, feedback around, is more apparent in the regions rather than actually, I think, the league specific comps, and that will include MLS. We'll get to that in the video today as well. But in the in-season champion competition, as you can see what the podium is here, it's 507 to 476. This competition had 949 entrants in Division 1, with over 77 of them bagging over 400 points. And as we look at the rest of the divisions as well, there's a significant, D1 is the smallest headcount division, but as you can see looking at Division 2, it's not got the overall strongest podium, as it were. There's podium players here that would have podiumed in the division up. There's 207 entrants out of 2,617 entrance into this Division 2. And as we slide down the scale for champion and for in-season, there are significant scores in every one of these divisions. The podium does start to get weaker from Division 3 downward, but the number of 400 point scores don't really go away. In Division 3 there was 177, and in Division 4 we had 91 out of 4,664 entrants in Division 4. But when we get all the way down to Division 5, it has the smallest count of over 400 point scores. There's only 22 in this out of 3,859 entrants, and as you can see, the podium here is quite comfortably the weakest podium of all 5 divisions. But across all of these divisions, there are 16,048 entries, with 574 teams scoring over 500 points. Now, these are spread across 5 divisions at the moment, so you will still get a little bit of divisional shelter, as it were. Like Division 1 is probably going to be the smallest division, as it kind of has been to this point anyway, but Division 2 and 3 are going to get a lot bigger, with the teams coming up from Division 4 and 5 kind of repopulate. Division 4 and 5 are probably just going to become Division 3 for the most part, and Division 3 and maybe the bottom end of 2 is going to become Division 2, I would imagine, with Division 1 probably just hoovering up some of the top end Division 2 teams to get it started. Out of 16,000 entrants, there was previously like 950 in Division 1. I would expect that to maybe get closer to like 1,200 or so. Maybe 1,500. Let's say 1,500 for easy numbers. So if we have 16,000 and some change the now, minus 1,500, that would leave us with 14,500, give or take. Now, maybe Division 1's a little bit bigger, okay? I don't think there's much more room in it than that, to be honest with you. Looking at the cash payout guaranteed to be in 650, I suppose Sorare do like the 20% mark, don't they? So that means Division 1 could be as high as 3,000 entrants, which would then leave 13,000 entrants to compete across Division 2 and 3. Now, I do think Division 3 will be bigger than Division 2, but with the volume we're talking about, it's going to be somewhat inconsequential, isn't it? In terms of, like, Division 2 might have 7,000 and Division 3 has 6,000, you know, but kind of roughly the same, but Division 2 will probably be like the, you know, probably like a diamond-shaped kind of divisions. Again, deja vu from last year when we spoke about this. So when we look at the actual potential to win cash and to do well and all the rest of it, some managers are never getting to Division 1 anyway, as things stand at the moment. And the way this is going to be built now, that's almost certainly going to be the case again. So for a lot of managers starting out, which is always my first kind of, you know, the main thing with me, right, is see a lot of these changes, and I'll probably talk about this as we go on, they actually benefit me. I'm actually probably quids in from this. I'm probably on the way up. I'm probably going to yield even more in the second half of this season because of how strong some of my strategies are. But I engage very regularly with most new users. I don't know about most, that's probably an exaggeration, but a lot of new users find the channel, reach out to me in DMs, jump into comment sections. So many people find the beginner tutorial videos and sign up to Sorare through this, and there's so many of you guys that join the member section and we do strategy reviews, and you may be playing the game for a month, 3 months. There's always newcomers coming into the channel, and I don't know if there's anyone that speaks to more of them than myself, to be quite honest. And every single one of them buying in-season cards are going to go into this Division 3 where, you know, getting promoted from it, like you're going to get promoted on 30%. 30% goes up from Division 3 to Division 2, and only 15% goes up from Division 2 to Division 1. So getting into Division 1 is going to be even harder because, as you can see here, 15% to 30% are going to collect some essence, so they'll be able to kind of, you know, bank up some essence, maybe craft a card or whatever. The progression model kind of works there, I guess, I suppose. But with only 15% going up, and with this being essentially 2 divisions worth of teams now at this point, getting into that Division 1 is going to be even harder. And with the relegation, I don't know if it's changed, but it's 30% to get relegated. I think it's 20 at the moment. So with that relegation bar, I think it's lifted. I'll need to fact check that, of course. Feel free to do that for me in the comment section. It's going to be harder to stay and maintain in that division. Now, for in-season, like, you know, you play the game, you know, you buy your in-season cards, you do what you need to do, you roll with the punches, you wait for your week in the sun, and maybe you can strike it big, you know, get on the podium, get promoted into D1. You know, these things can and do happen across world football. But my main concern with the limiteds going down to 3 divisions is anyone starting out, you know, buying limiteds for the first time, because that Division 3 is going to be wildly competitive. High XP card collection bonus is going to be in effect, because so many guys that are at the top end of this Division 3 are guys that will make strategic relegations because they can't get out of Division 2. So their last team, they'll just get it ducked, you know, get it to fall down, and then go again with a strong team in Division 3. A little bit of that element will creep into it, as well as, again, just sometimes force majeure. Some things happen, your teams get relegated and you find yourself in that division. So again, with the prize place pot there being decent enough, if you're at limited, there will definitely be limited players that want to be in Division 3 and will seek a way of doing that. And when there's only 170 spots that pay out cash, like, that's not a great division for anyone starting out. It's going to be very competitive. There's not much joy really to be had. Getting into the top 30% You know, we're imagining there's like 7,000 entrants in this, so we're talking about getting into the top like 2,000 or so, give or take. But anyone in this Division 3 that gets Essence is getting promoted, you know, so there's no opportunity for you to get your little 2 Essences for a few game weeks, maybe get up to 20 and then go for it. If you're getting into that top 30%, you're getting thrown straight up into Division 2. So with any little win you do get, you're then going to be in an increasingly harder situation, and there is no real rest for the wicked. And yeah, it is a competitive game, and yeah, you do need strong scores and all the rest of it, but there is no breeding ground here for new people on a budget, people trying to, you know, play both sides of the coin, as it were, in terms of like buying the in-season cards, buying guys that could play, but maybe they don't have, you know, like, you can't make people have money. You know, we can't all afford Lamine Yamal's and Jude Bellingham's and all the rest of it. You know, there has to be viability for people to have galleries that are yet to contain stars. Like, everyone should aspire to have them. A lot of people will have them at some point, but there has to be a space for when you're cutting your teeth for coming up the pyramid, as it were. And, you know, when we look at Classic, the numbers are just even more daunting, you know, because out of those 16,000 in-season entries that we have right now in in-season, every single one of them is a Classic division for next, or a Classic entry, or a Classic team, a Classic squad for next season. Now, every manager is limited to 3 lineups, of course, so it's not going to increase the quality of, or the volume, I should say, of teams being deployed per manager, of course. But there was 574 scores over 400 in that. Champ Division 1 Classic in this game week 35, where it was the last one everything was playing, we had 2,500 entrants. The podium, as you can see, is quite strong there compared to what we've seen in season, but it's not compared to what we see further down the food chain. 189 players in Division 1 scored over 400 points. In Division 2, the podium is a lot stronger. 374 teams in Division 2 scored over 400 points. In Division 3, there was just under 9,000 entrants in this one. The podium is the strongest of all the divisions in this one, in Division 3, and there was 293 entries that scored over 400 points. In Division 4, we had 98 teams scoring over 400 points, which is very shallow by comparison, and it's more in line with what we see in season. And as you can see with the strength of the podium, again at Division 4 is quite similar. But again, at Division 5, like, you can see a big drop-off on Division 5 Limited and, Unlimited, Classic and in-season. So I get that, yeah, maybe there's some rewards getting given out here for some suboptimal performances. And in-season, in the bottom division, there was 22 scores of 400 or more. In Classic, there was only 20. And in both competitions, the podium has been the weakest. I get that. So in total, in Classic, there's 974 entries here that broke through the 400 point barrier. And even if you want to be generous and say that half of them will be in Division 1 and half of them will be in Division 2, that's all the prize. That's, you know, 500 spots there for Tier 4s. You're not going to get any essence for that as well, by the way. You're just getting a card, not card and essence. And in Division 2, it would be, again, all the card play spots. Now, 400 is a great mark, a great target to get to, and all the rest of it. But in Division 3, there's not going to be as many of them. And people will get promoted out of Division 3, probably. Most likely. In Classic, some of them will get promoted not getting anything, not even any XP or whatever, because you know, it stops at 20% here. In Division 2, 5% of people will win some essence without getting promoted, but I just feel that it's just a little bit too mean and lean. And I get that it really does condense the prize pool and all the rest of it, but the actual volume and quality of lineups in here, like, there's no room for anyone to get into the game here. That's my main concern, my main worry with Limited overall. Is I think, like, Division 3 is going to be really hard for anyone new starting out to have 3 decent teams in, and even when they do get one good team, they're going to get scooped up with a very minimal win and to have very much a higher division that they might not necessarily get relegated out of without taking a dive, without bombing your lineup, which, again, who wants to do that? Nobody. So I think this could have still been kept to 4 divisions personally. Now, Division 4 could have had really crap prizes on it in comparison to the rest of them. We get a star for finish. I'm just kind of noticing this now, but we do get a star for winning Division 3, which is quite nice, actually, you know, because, again, if you were to jackpot your way out of that division, then you'll be rubbing your hands together, whereas at the moment, that's not quite the case. Obviously, stars stop after Division 2 at the moment, so that's a little bit of a nice change, I guess, but it just feels, like I say, a little bit too lean and mean. Now, when we look at Rare, I've not did the as forensically for Rare as I have for Limited, because, again, it's the same 3 divisions, but the head counts are much smaller, and it's just less of an issue, really. For Rare, I don't think 3 divisions is out the equation, or really much of a problem. I think at Rare, they've probably really hit the sweet spot when it comes to Rare in terms of just refining it, making it much more appealing, much more attractive, and really, like, yeah, like a very good competition. You know, a lot of the same principles that we spoke about in Limited do apply themselves here in Rare, I think, but it's just less of an issue, less of a problem, because number one of the smaller head count, the lack of the same availability of 400-point potential scoring lineups. I think Rare is kind of the sweet spot. I think where they really fall off the wagon with this, but is when we look at Super Rare. Now, Super Rare going to one complete division for me is, it's not quite a nightmare, right? But it's very, I think, counterintuitive. Now, I called it on my live reaction. It's just whale bait. They're just whale baiting the guys like McBride and PSU. And honestly, like, I was not happy with this development, and we'll talk about it more in a second, right? But I was more unhappy at listening to Sean's breakdown of it, because it was just so contradictory on himself, you know. And again, it's just from a very obscure, very individual point of view, rather than looking at the thing on a broad stroke and really what does it mean for the realm, as it were, you know, which is very much more where I look at it. Because I don't, like, again, we can talk about me, we don't need to talk about me, I don't care at this point. But this is going back to being the way Super Rare used to be, when we had All-Star, when we had Under 23, when we had Champ Euro, we had Champ Asia, Champ America, Challenger Euro, where there's just one division, and hey, you can build a team on a budget, cross your fingers, and boom, if you do get in, like, it's a pretty chunky prize pool. This is classic. You know, this is a decent podium by anyone's standing. I think the cards pay out to the top 20. Very old schooly vibes. Let's jump in the time machine, go back to the old Sorare when we had those old regions, and imagine they gave multi-entry at Super Rare. Yep, I thought about it long enough. I cannot imagine that being a widely accepted positive, to be quite frank with you. Now, certainly the guys that have got oodles and oodles of Super Rares would be happy, because it's just more utility, more places to deploy your cards. We're always happy about that, of course we are. But this goes against the sentiment that they're putting out in this announcement, where it's to streamline progression and it's to make things more achievable and more attainable. Because the way I look at it, you can look at Champion, you can look at any of the regions. Like I said earlier in the video, this is all a bit more region, you know, it's a bit more apparent in the regions than it is in the league-specific comps, right? But in these regions, you're going to have multi-entry from all of the other players, and, you know, like, poor me, right, whatever, but all the big stack players, all the big whale players are multi-entry in this division. Now they have the ability to clone, to have the same copies of a card have 5% collection bonus on it. And with there only being, like, just using Champion as an example here, it's Super Rare Classic, only 20 spots get a card, and in terms of the numbers, 20% for Essence. It might be a bit better for actually yielding some Essence, and that might actually be a bit more actually achievable than it is at the moment, because I've only crafted, like, I've crafted 2 Super Rares this season, or 1, but it's not been that many. And yeah, I've not been the most prolific at Super Rare. Other people have been better, of course. But with in-season as well, changing to have 4 in-season cards. The thing with this dynamic that I think is kind of lost on everyone, right, is a lot of the value of Classic in general as a mode, as, just to use that word again, a realm, is a function of a card, where you buy it in-season and then it becomes Classic. Part of the value it retains when not being in season, or if you were to buy a classic card, part of the value that card has inherently in it at this stage is, number one, its ability to win in-season cards. That's pretty much their only function at this stage, especially like with the Super Rare, with the reduced eligibility of classics into the in-season competition, with it now going in line with Rare and Limited. And for me, classics don't have any gained utility on the ability to try and win in-season cards on what they had before. If anything, for me, it's diminished quite greatly. I've managed to actually scoop up like 3 or 4 card wins this season from the lower divisions, thankfully, like playing goalkeepers, strikers at start, etc. And that's the way that I think Classic, you know, look, that's the way Classic should be used, where you try and win in-season cards to supplement anything that you're going to be buying in the market. And like into the top 35 and bagging 100 quid will be fine, of course. Jackpotting it out at 5k, rub your hands together, of course. But getting these in-season cards, if you're not like a power user, if you're not a mega whale, then it's not going to be as achievable, where even people can think about, oh, well, I could do it on a budget. It's not even going to be worth trying, really, at this stage. So it's just going to further cull the rest of the, let's say, the realm of Super Rare, in my opinion. You know, you've now got less people that be willing to buy in-season cards, because like building a team to go up against the mighty wallets that are out there is going to seem more folly. Because like now you could say like, oh, well, Pranksy gets his City stack, his Liverpool stack, his Newcastle stack, and then off he runs, right? And then maybe like you could wait a month or two, and maybe you could get one of the City cards he's got a bit cheaper, because maybe, there's not that many of them, there's not that many people who go and buy them or whatever. But now, like that second or third copy of a Man City defender, of a Newcastle forward or whatever, he's probably going to want to have them as well, in case like Newcastle are playing bottom and he wants to go full Newcastle, and he can just copy and paste 3 lineups of death that want to go out there. So if less actual people are buying them, that just means less actual cards are sold. Now, maybe you'll sell more copies of Newcastle players, right? But no one's going to buy the Ipswiches and the likes, if you get me. So I think the actual marketplace, the actual, customer pool, or whatever you want to think of it as, people that could and would buy super rares, is just going to go down dramatically. Now, does that help these guys that are in this one division with their multi-entry? Yeah, it does greatly. Does it help the game? I don't think so. And again, no one really comes to me anymore like starting out like, oh, I want to play super rare. It's been kind of a dead game mode in that regard. People don't really look that far up the pyramid at this stage. So I get the kind of play into the gallery element that's happening here, but super rare should still have 2 divisions for me. I remember a chat I had with Sorare a while ago when I said to them super rare could use an extra division, and they were palpably like confused, surprised. They genuinely said to me, nobody said this to us. And it's because I think like anyone they speak to that plays super rare is guys that are throwing wads of cash in, so fair enough. Big paying customers, you want to keep them happy, of course, but their main gripe is this, they'd not been in the top division when their team goes off. And that was the only thing that would give any other users that are like keen traders, guys that are like budget scouters, guys that look for guys that are underpriced, to give them their moment in the sun where you could find yourself in Division 2 or 1 and Real Madrid aren't playing, Barcelona conceded 3 goals or something like that, and you could maybe make something happen. Whereas now, like, yeah, those things will still happen, but like there will be less people that could take advantage of it now, and it will just kind of turn into unique in a sense. That's just kind of the way I feel with it. Is it's just going to kind of die out a little bit. Now, for me, for super rares, I'll be keeping all of mine, and I've said this, like the jackpot element is there. Everyone's in Division 1, right? So if your stars align, then boom, you go right to the top of the leaderboard. You can sing, I'll do my victory lap, and we'll do a card opening for it. It'll be a great, or cash opening, whatever it is. I'm sure we'll have a great time. But unless you're a power user with star level cards, the strategy is play and pray now. And really, the changes they've made to in-season is the price to pay for this, because I think they do know that it is only going to be the super whale accounts that will come back and buy new super rares, which is why they need them to buy more. They want them to buy copies of the Newcastle and the City stack. They need them now to have 4 in-season cards. So I don't think they're doing any of this without being fully aware of anything I've said, really, to be honest with you. But this is more of a kind of, for anyone that's interested in the drama or the chat or whatever with that division in particular, that's my thoughts and feelings on it. And it's just another nerf again to anyone trying to scout this game, anyone trying to be cute, try and get tier 2 level guys, tier 1 level guys, and line them up correctly and then take on the power users, because like with the strength and depth of multi-entry in all of these divisions, it just seems more and more folly. It just seems like more and more of a wasted exercise. I think outside of this, these changes divisionally, like I'm not rare is fine. Like I said earlier, I probably actually benefit net gain from all of this overall. But I think Limited could still use a Division 4, and I still think Super Rare could use a Division 2. The XP update is a lovely part of the game where I think it's going to really refine a lot of the squad management you can do, where it'll be interesting to see, because at the moment they did say that there'll be cooldowns on the XP. At the moment we've got maximum 3 level ups, so it's going to be a different equation, a different kind of dynamic on managing it. So we'll kind of watch out for how the XP changes on like the cooldown and all the rest of it. And like I mentioned with the collection bonus thing, in some instances it is going to be overkill, but it also then, like at limited level, at rare level, where multiple copies of cards are easier to acquire, I do kind of half worry that it might be a bad move. I spoke about this on my reaction. I was reading it, I just had this feeling of this isn't good, but it kind of is, because again, like if we've all kind of spoke about it, but if you win a card you've already bought and it's a high level, you don't want it missing out on collection bonus and that kind of thing. So it's a funny one. We'll kind of see how it goes. Now, all the MLS stuff, Brazil moving into contender is a bit of a kick in the teeth for anyone that had Brazil cards, of course. But this MLS development is pretty fantastic overall for the most part, because like I mentioned before with the super rare stuff and I suppose the division element that we were just chatting about, the primary function of classic cards is to win in-season cards. Now, with MLS being completely siloed into its own place now, it's the only place where you can play MLS cards. Part of the problem with MLS cards in the past has been like, if you win a tier 1 or a star rare, sometimes they're crap, or sometimes it's a goalkeeper that you don't really want. But because they're now only eligible to play in that one competition, their status as a star is a bit more defined. Like if they are the top keeper, they're one of the top keepers, they're one of the top players in that league. because it's the only place they can play that effect, you will feel like you're getting a more justly tiered reward, I think, for the most part, going forward in this one, which means classic MLS, because you've now got more utility here with in-season. We've now got in-season as we know it, but we also now have in-season plus, which has got a requirement of 5 in-season cards. I thought it was at this part of the announcement, maybe it's further down. Lineups with 5 in-season cards. I'm going to call this like in-season plus or in-season pro, as well as the regular in-season. So MLS entries, you've now got the potential to deploy 9 lineup. So winning in-season MLS cards is very, very valuable, because anyone playing in this doesn't just have 3 teams that they want to get out, but probably 6 teams of in-season cards. So classic MLS cards that can yield, it can box, or not box, but can card, get essence. We've not seen the full prize pool yet, which is something that we need to flavour this conversation with in due course. But I think classic MLS cards are in a really good spot right now, because they're in their own little contained thing. It's not like you're winning them and then you have to play them in Challenger against PSV and all these other things. I would still like them to be in the region, don't get me wrong, but I think as an overall game development, like, MLS cards probably have never been as valuable because they have this exclusive access. And again, let's see how it actually shakes out. But if there's threshold exclusively in this, number one, I don't think it'll be exclusive for long. I think this will be something that we see come into the new European season when everything restarts off again. And I think we'll have this same dynamic of in-season and in-season plus kind of happen also. I think this is all foreshadowing for what we'll see in the new European season. And I think, again, if you've got MLS cards already, which I do, I'm actually quite happy about this. I think it gives all my classic cards that little bit more value, which I'm always happy about getting since I spent so much blooming money on them. And, again, I've got deja vu for me looking at this from a champ perspective, because we're going to get early access, we're going to get day one launches on MLS. Those cards are going to be expensive. Remember when the SPFL first came out? I'm getting those kind of vibes around MLS again. But you don't even have the luxury of like, oh, well, the very first Ryan Gauld has went to Pranksy, so the next one I'll definitely be able to get it, because he's got every incentive to buy the first 3 of the cards he wants. Never mind Pranksy's just like the guy we always just save, but it could be anyone like Nanzo's or anyone. Could be anyone you're thinking of. But if they have the wallet, they can go buy the first 3 golds that come available. Maybe they only sell 10 before the first game, you know what I mean? And getting into in-season from the off is going to take a wallet, is going to take some firepower. So I think anyone that does hope to play this, again, if you're not messing with Classic or you don't think you need Classic, think again, because you are going to need to be able to get your hands on every in-season card as quickly as possible in any way you possibly can. So I think overall MLS has just got a new kind of vigour around it. It's got its own kind of place on the mantelpiece now, as it were. And let's say the prize pot, let's say the prize pot place pools, as it were. As long as they're not, I would expect them to be kind of like Bundesliga-ish, if we were looking at the blog announcement earlier, or like La Liga, so like the Prem and the Champ are pretty much on the same level. Like, I would expect it to be in that kind of realm of, like the Bundesliga, La Liga, maybe one of the regions like Challenger. Challenger's quite a small region, of course, compared to Contender. So I would expect that kind of thing to happen personally. But the regional changes don't make a lot, and I think as well, like, they can't really move the European teams up into Challenger yet because they're in the middle of their season, and I don't think they could do that. I think dropping Brazil is possible because it's in between seasons, as well as MLS being siloed off. But I think we could see it in the August update that Scotland, Croatia, Austria move into Challenger, and it's called like Challenger Europe or something like that, and then it is like non-EU, but then they get into muddy waters, leaving Bundesliga 2 and all the rest of it down there, so we'll see how that does develop out. But it does feel like geographically organising these regions, again, it's probably the more appropriate way to go about it. But that'll maybe take a gameplay update or 2 for them to actually move the pieces around the board, without doing it out of turn or doing it out with their own kind of pattern that they've established here. And I think this really underlines a lot of the content we've been making on the channel over the last month or so, talking about the differences between limited and rare, and really, no matter what your budget is, being able to kind of look at both options and what moves you can make. I think that side of the game is very much alive and very much being enhanced by this, because being in Division 1, if you can build a gallery, you can get a squad up there, like, it looks even better than before. And like I mentioned a few times, like, a lot of these changes probably actually help me. I just think some of this is quite counterintuitive to the game mode. We also still have, of course, things like specials and All-Star that will get kind of littered in amongst this, which can also give people maybe a route to go, because, like, if you are a regional player and you're putting all your power players into your D1s and all the rest of it, then those specials, those All-Stars, you know, they can be your route to success potentially. Like, even this coming game week, I'm going to be playing Specialist in season. Celtic aren't playing, but I've got a lot of good contender cards, and I'm going after that Specialist, hoping, you know, I'll be able to zig when others are zagging kind of thing. So, like I said, this is just first reaction, first takes, and I think some of this, like, on this channel, we've got a pretty good track record on calling some of these dynamics from coming out. I remember this time last year talking about how brutal Classic was going to be, as well as things like you cannot think about in-season and Classic being separate parts of the game, because if you're playing one, you'll either end up doing it or you're doing it without realizing. You will play both of them. It's just the way the game is built and how these elements kind of interlock together. So it's one of these ones where you might think, oh, I'm just going to buy in-season cards this year, but you know, Classic is something that will come into your thinking, will come into the fold, will just come to your door eventually, whether you like it or not, whether your cards go out of season or, you know, you get extra guys you need to bring in, that sort of thing. And conversely, if you think, oh, I'll just play Classic and won't really bother in season too much, you know, the bother of in season really determines on the value of your rewards. If in season cards are being bought and they're liquid, people are after them and all the rest of it, then playing Classic is really good. And I say it feels like Rare is pretty sweet over all of this. I think Limited will be interesting to watch that Division 3 and see how it pans out. And I think for Super Rare, it's missing a division. I think anyone who isn't like a Mad Whale account has been kind of screwed over, to be quite honest with you, because a multi-entry, you know, it's kind of one of those ones where going single division in this case, it's just, I think it's too much. So anyway, happy to be wrong on any of my thoughts and feelings on this. We might have someone from Sorare join us on the channel as well to discuss it in more detail. And yeah, let me know your thoughts and feelings, of course, down in the comment section down below. I think that's all the main points I wanted to kind of touch on this one. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you did enjoy the video, of course, for more content like this on screen. And there's some other stuff that I've made to the YouTube things you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit the like button if you haven't done that already, of course, as well. Stay out of trouble, and I will catch you on the next one.